So, in this instance, guys, we have a very interesting case, and this is a case that's receiving a lot of media attention here in Chicago. There was a Mexican family that was killed on the southwest side in the Gage Park neighborhood. Okay, 6 people were killed. It was like an absolute massacre in the house. Main suspect and the person who's the focus of this case is the nephew and the male relative of these 6 people. Okay, his last name is Uribe. Diego Uribe is his name. He's accused of basically killing all these people. Okay, now this is like as far as the law enforcement perspective, this is the main suspect. The interesting thing though is that an FBI informant had given them a tip that it was actually hitmen from the Juarez cartel that had done this, basically over some money. So the police had checked that out, apparently, and they didn't feel like that tip was credible. Now, listen, man, we know that a lot of times, innocent people get convicted of stuff, but then we also know a lot of times that guilty people get away with stuff. So this is one that, I would hate to be on the jury in this case, because if they convict this guy and it was the cartel, you're talking obviously the maximum sentence. Whereas, if he did do it and go with the information that points to the cartel, then you could be letting out, if he is guilty, a guy who just committed 6 homicides of his own family. So this is a story where, to be honest with you, looking at the facts, I don't know who to believe at this point. And hopefully they'll get the right person, because allegedly there were 4 masked guys that came into this house and did these murders. The problem is they allegedly found the DNA of the nephew, the relative, under the fingernails of one of the victims, and that appears to be their main piece of evidence. The thing is, it's his aunt. But you guys decide based on the details of this case, man. So just getting into some of this, and there's some really gruesome stuff here. In nearly 2 hours today, a Cook County jury heard about this guy Uribe killing 6 members of his extended family inside of the family's southwest side home. So the massacre included 2 child victims. And what the prosecutors are alleging is that this was the result of a robbery that spun out of control and got this guy nothing more than $250, some jewelry, I don't know how much the jewelry was worth, an Xbox, and a piggy bank. So, at any rate, this guy Diego Uribe apparently was on his way back from a medical clinic on February 2nd, 2016, when he stopped by his aunt's house. So, according to what the prosecutors are, according to the case that they're making, he had a gun with him, and he got to this orange brick bungalow. Now, this was a bungalow that his aunt shared with her 2 children, her brother, and parents. Now, shout out to the Mexican families that, have a lot of extended family living with them. We had the same thing, the Greeks, man. That's how immigrants do it. So you can sometimes have these large families, extended families, uncles, aunts living under the same roof. So the family was apparently just sitting down for dinner and offered Diego Uribe some food. He asked to talk to his aunt, whose name was Maria Martinez. So Uribe and Martinez went up to the 2nd floor into the attic. Now, this is a similar home, these bungalows in the Gage Park neighborhood on the southwest side to the house that I was born in. And these things are they're pretty small. Okay, these are not big houses. So whatever's going on in one part of these things, pretty much everybody in the house knows about it. It's not really possible to do something in one room and not have everybody else in the house know what's going on. So Uribe allegedly pulled out a gun and held it onto the aunt, who was 38, demanding that she give him all the money in the house. Now, she didn't think that he was serious at first, okay, according to, like I said, the case that the government is making, and she laughed. But after she realized that he was serious, she started to grab for the gun and struggle with him for it. And Uribe then shot her in the forehead several times. Now, here's the part that's a little bit shaky about this idea to me. It's that if this is his relative's house, he could easily steal a key or just kind of snoop around the house. Like if you're somebody's nephew or you're somebody's close relative, like when I went to my aunt's house, obviously I never stole anything from them, but that would just be super foul. But she would just let me go all over the house unsupervised anytime I wanted to. So if anybody had wanted to steal something from the relative, that would be super easy to do. The fact that he would have to force her to give him all the money in the house is kind of, I don't know, this kind of far-fetched. But at any rate, then the brother of the auntie came up, who was also 38, tried to come up the stairs, and allegedly, according to the government, Uribe pistol whipped him until he fell to the floor. Then he pinned his knee to Martinez's throat until he stopped moving. When the sibling's mother, whose name was Rosaura Martinez, followed, Uribe allegedly kicked her down the flight of stairs, knocking her unconscious. Uribe later allegedly grabbed a knife from the kitchen and repeatedly stabbed the 58-year-old. For the children, there was one of them whose name was Leonardo Cruz, he was 13, and his brother Alexis Cruz, who was 10. Uribe allegedly forced them to help him search for items of value in the house. And Uribe next cornered Leonardo, one of the kids in the living room. They then stabbed him to death. So then the older guy in the house, the older relative, Noe Martinez, who was 62, returned home. And Uribe allegedly fatally stabbed him as well. The bodies were discovered when police conducted a well-being check at the home 2 days later. So Uribe was arrested several months later, and prosecutors are charging him with the murder in May of 2016, saying that Uribe's DNA was found at the scene under Maria Martinez's fingernails. So that's the evidence that they have. The father of the two children that were killed was in the courtroom. He testified through a translator earlier in the day that he had been living in Mexico at the time of the murders and had spoken to his children the day before they were killed. Uribe's defense attorney said this is going to be a terrible case to have to sit through. She asked the jurors to set their emotions aside and look at the facts. She said there was no way that Uribe, who was 28, could have killed all 6 members of the family alone. So basically, she's saying you're talking about 1 on 6. Okay, and he's doing this with a knife. So how is he going to take on all 6 members of the family? And she suggested that the killers were, quote, 4 masked men who came to the home demanding money. And she said when the money wasn't coming, they started killing people. So Uribe recognized one of the men, who then threatened Uribe's family. So his attorney said, quote, Diego didn't speak up. He didn't point the finger at anyone, but he's not a murderer. So she's saying he's not snitching on the cartel. And, everybody knows, what happens to guys that snitch on the cartel. So she's saying that, he's not snitching on the cartel, but he's not the one who did the killing. Now, she didn't name the cartel. She just said 4 masked men. But this year, the circuit court judge denied a defense motion to present jurors' hearsay testimony from a former FBI informant who called police with a tip that the murders were linked to the violent Juarez cartel. The informant told detectives that cartel bosses sent, quote, enforcers to Chicago to go after Armando Cruz after he had made off with $3.5 million with a $3.5 million drug shipment, according to court filings. Now, here's the thing. That's kind of far-fetched, too. I mean, both of these sides of the story are kind of far-fetched because, okay, he makes off with $3.5 million in dope, right? And then he's just staying at this residence where everybody knows that he's at after he just robbed the cartel of $3.5 million bucks. That's basically, you might as well, put a gun to your own head and just pull the trigger. Everybody knows how the cartels get down. So Chicago police detectives and FBI agents interviewed the informant in Mexico before Uribe was charged, but they apparently ruled him out, and those that he named as the killers as suspects. So how they ruled them out, I don't know. How they eliminated those guys as suspects in the case. But those guys are in Mexico, okay, and they're allegedly part of a cartel, and the cartel has been known to even mess with law enforcement, threaten law enforcement and commit violence against law enforcement. And the cartels, I mean, they go after families, they go after everybody. So there's a lot of factors in play here, man. This is a very difficult web to unravel. And what the truth is, hopefully that'll come out, but it's going to be hard for that to come out in this case. The defense attorneys made no mention of the cartel in court on Wednesday. And again, if you're a defense attorney and you're pointing the finger at the cartel, at the Juarez cartel, that could be something that could potentially threaten your own life and the life of your family, because attorneys wouldn't necessarily be off limits. I mean, you wouldn't want to assume that you're off limits just because you're an attorney when you're dealing with the cartel, because cartels are known to exempt nobody. This is a really interesting murder mystery, man. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section. So we've got two, suspects here, although in this trial, the prosecutors are charging this particular guy, and, they say that the cartel is they're not suspects. So, I don't know, man. A lot of innocent people end up in prison, and a lot of guilty people get to walk. Sometimes because, they appear that they could be innocent and there's not enough evidence. But, the justice system is not perfect. And it's one reason why I'm against the death penalty, because there's been so many innocent people killed. Even when it looks crystal clear like it's them, it just ends up being something from way out in the left field, some other dude that nobody had even heard of. There's so many cases like that. But at any rate, man, let me know what you guys think in the comments section, man. There's your boy Winnie City Report. I'm out.